I'm not afraid of all of my story. I'm not afraid of the good parts, the bad parts, the low parts, the high parts. Like they're all who I am. And as long as I own my story, no one can take that away from me.
You're listening to the Bold by Choice podcast with Vashaunta Harris and Jim Goenner, where we ask what school could be and learn from the people brave enough to build it. Powered by the National Charter Schools Institute.
Well, family, we have our friend and colleague here again with us to help us frame up this conversations. Welcome back to the show, Don.
Hey, it's great to be back, and it feels like I'm back with my friend Ted Coldry, too, on this reading.
Yes, he is making a reappearance with us in a way with our question set today. In Chapter 8 from the Split Screen Strategy, I think this is going to hit home with a lot of folks because a lot of us are talking about, like, how do we keep up in education with the boom of technology we're experiencing right now? So I'm pretty pumped to dive in.
Yeah, no, it's a great chapter, and if you look at Ted's work, he is really, I'll call him a leader in encouraging schools and people to start using computer technology, digital technology in new ways to advance learning.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And folks, that's in fact one of the pivotal points of the first question here. And so, Don, how does the chapter actually distinguish between digital tools to make traditional schooling more efficient versus using them to fundamentally personalize learning for students?
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. But before that, I just kind of want to go to Ted's definition of what technology is, because when we hear technology, sometimes we think of it in terms of computer technology, your cell phone or your iPad or something like that. Technology is just an old term, and that just means the way that we take capital and labor and mix them together to get a result. So, a machine is a type of technology. Your car is a type of technology. By mixing capital and labor, you can do things that just weren't possible for you before. So when we think of technology, we shouldn't be scared of it, and we shouldn't think of it as evolving at necessarily a rapid pace, because it is evolving, but it's always been evolving, and we've always found ways to keep up with it and put it to good and productive use. So when I first encountered Ted and his friend Joe Nathan and that group's writings, it was in a book that was published in 1988 that Joe Nathan had edited called Public Schools by Choice, and it had a whole chapter on computer technology. And the thrust of that chapter was we need to embrace computers in education because it takes so long to print course catalogs. And those course catalogs change. And when we use the computer to put our course catalogs on, we can just make the changes faster and disseminate information faster. So what Joe and that group were talking about at that point was how do we use technology to kind of improve the system that we have? So not necessarily fundamentally changing the design of things, but delivering content faster, bringing materials to folks faster so they can just have a more, say, rapid, access to information and stuff. Wikipedia is nice because it's right there in front of you, but it fundamentally hasn't changed what the concept of the encyclopedia is. It's just put it in everybody's hands. What Ted thinks about, and why I think his work is so important, is he thinks about how do you use this technology not just to take, something and bring it to scale or bring more people the encyclopedia or publish the course catalog faster, but how do you use it to encourage personalized learning? Because with computer technology, kids have an infinite number of choices available for them of how they structure their day. So with Khan Academy, with what's going on in the virtual universities, dual enrollment, things like that, kids can really access stuff that they just didn't have the ability to do so before, to create very customized day schedules for them, very customized learning patterns. And because of the adaptive nature of computer technology, things can get super personalized and content can be made harder or easier based off of a child's response to a question. So I think what Ted would argue is that when we embrace digital learning, we can embrace it in a way that just delivers content in a way and engages kids in a different way on a very individual level. And that's just something that you can't get without the use of that technology. And we should embrace that.
That's right. And Jim, I want to click into that concept a little bit more with you here. So Cauldry suggests that personalization is not just about the tech itself, but also about like who's making the decisions about learning. So what does that imply about the role of teachers and the role of students within this system?
Well, that means, Vashaunta, that technology is not a solution. The technology is an enabler, and it enables students and teachers. Think about it as expanding the reach of the teacher. Think about it as helping the student understand where they're at, meeting them where they're at. And that's the real power. And so I think a proper framing that technology is not the solution, it's the strategy, it's the enabler, it's the empowerer that allows teachers and students to have more time to build those relationships, to push the learning, to strengthen it, and to the higher purpose.
So Vashaunta, I just want to build on that. Jim and I have a friend who sometimes reminds us that learning is bypassing the institution that we call school. Okay. And that at one point in time, if you wanted to learn, you had to be in the classroom. You had to have your professor, your teacher in front of you. You had to go to the library and check out books. It was a very institutionalized process. Now it isn't. Now anyone can learn. If you're interested and engaged in something, you have the whole sum of human knowledge just a few mouse clicks away from you. So how does it shift the power? It takes it out of the hands of the institutions in the system, and it puts it in the hands of the student and the parent to decide what they want to learn, how they want to learn it, and at what pace. And that's really a powerful shift that empowers so many more people.
Prashant, another key point is if a student were stuck with a bad teacher, right now they got to just kind of get through the year. With access to the technology, they can learn. They can learn on their own. Not as good as with a great teacher, but that gives them options, what we might call exit voice, and an ability. And so it's also a great democratizer because the technology is accessible. What I want to really encourage is that we don't think of technology as automation, but true personalization that expands the reach of the teacher and empowers the learner to be able to pursue things they're interested in and to reach them where they're currently at as they're growing their skills.
That's absolutely right. And something that just dawned upon me is when Ted Cauldry wrote this book, we didn't have AI, but like how important is the technology that our students and teachers and parents have access to today, and this concept of like how do we use it to support learning, to support the student journey, whether sometimes people want to say, oh, we got to like put all these guardrails around it and we got to make sure that security is there, but it's a very, I think, timely conversation even today as our technology looks very different than what it may have when the book was written. That's just something that kind of dawned on me as we were talking.
You're right. And that also just underscores the pace at which technology changes, too. So I forget if it's in this book or another one of Ted's books, a little anecdote that he uses that's too good not to share. And that's about the farmer. And some people say that a farmer might grow corn. Okay. And in reality, a farmer doesn't. A farmer tills the land, a farmer neutralizes, or a farmer tills the land, a farmer nourishes the soil, a farmer irrigates, a farmer puts the seeds in the ground at the right time. The corn is the one that grows itself. What the farmer does is the farmer creates the conditions in which it is possible for the corn to grow. Okay. So when we have access to the sum of all of human history a few mouse clicks away, what does that mean about the role of the teacher, the role of the school? It means that they're not necessarily there delivering education per se, but they're creating the conditions in which kids can learn. And that learning means inspiring them, it means coaching them, it means igniting that fire, that passion for learning, that curiosity and wonder that so many kids have, that they can then use technology and the access to the information that comes through it to continue to learn on their own when they're outside of the classrooms, when they're on the bus, wherever they're at.
Absolutely. Well, that is a good segue to the visit that we're going to have with our school today. This is a school that not only has embraced technology in terms of how they've made sure their teachers and their team are supported, but the technology they're using is really accelerating the learning that is happening for students, and it's in a very personalized way.
But Sean, I want to make a prediction. The future of education isn't more centralized or more automated. It's more human, more human by design. We might call that bold by choice.
All right, listeners and friends, in our pre-show, we grounded ourselves in this idea, right? Like, how does technology help us expand what's possible in education? And we want to bring that idea forward into real life. And we are joined today by Dr. Garland Thomas-McDavid, the CEO of Brooklyn Lab Charter School. Now, this is a school that thinks very, very deeply about how technology can support personalization. And trust me, we're not talking about replacing relationships. So, Dr. Garland, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, before we dive in, I'd love to start with you. How do you want listeners to understand who the magical Dr. TM really is?
I think the real magic for me is that I'm just a ghetto girl from Brooklyn that is always comfortable. I had to say to someone recently, like, I ain't never scared. Like, I grew up in East New York and a really difficult time. And I think it was a part of me being ready to embrace and support the work that needs to be done, because I do it from a place of I was that little girl that could see the discrepancies in my world and the school my mom had us bused to. So while I was definitely grateful for that opportunity and a strong start, before charters, it was the free choice program, and you could apply and attend schools outside your zone. And so we attended school in Bensonhurst, although we lived in East New York. And it served me really well. And so I come to this work from a place of motherhood. I have 5 children of my own. I am a grandmother. I'm not going to go into specifics. I'm still learning to embrace that. But
You're glamma. You're glamma.
No, I'm a Gigi. That's what
a Gigi.
And my name's Garland, so it works.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I come from that place as a mom. I was a teen mom and a high school dropout, trying to navigate schools when my daughter got to that age, and really understanding how much zip code really did play a role in what was accessible to you. I think we had a C school the way Florida did it. That's where I went to school, and where we eventually moved in the early 90s because of the safety issues. So I come from this work as a mom, trying to navigate those spaces on my own, really seeing that, like, I'm poor, and that's why I'm having this experience. And it wasn't really clear to me until we moved to Illinois after graduate school, and we were trying to settle in Chicago. And because, again, I was a teen mom, I was always like a young person with kids. So when we graduated, we had 3 girls, and we need to find schools for them. So I go, and we're like trying to live in Chicago. That's the progressive and hip thing to do. And every time I would look up a school, I would be surprised to see how 10% of the kids were passing. Only this percent of the kids were passing. And it was like, how are people sending their children to school? And what I realized is I don't know if it's still the same, but at that time, Chicago had a very heavy private school culture among the educated, and so I couldn't afford that. So we branched out. We went to Naperville, and it was a good decision for me professionally. I ended up teaching there, growing there, learning so much from Michael Razak. He was my principal and later became the board chair. Just an incredible mentor, and really showed me what school is supposed to feel like, look like. And I was able to use those things to fold them into the urban experiences that I have led and lead in this work. So bringing those great educational opportunities to students in need that are life-changing is like at the center of my work.
Yeah, Dr. TM, I'm really like glad that you're like sharing your story in this way. One of the things I'm really intrigued about is your own background, right? So you said,
Mhm.
yeah, somebody probably put the label on you like, okay, teen mom, high school dropout. How did you transition from those spaces, which we know don't define us, to then teaching and then leading in the powerful ways that you have?
I think that that has to be like God and my parents. There were people, educators, adults, who said horrible things to me at that time. I remember the truancy officer or the guidance counselor coming over to my house, and I answered the door, and my belly was big and all that stuff. And he looked at me with like disgust and was
Mm,
like, we thought you were going to be somebody." And right then in the center of myself, I don't know where it came from. I say to this day, I'm grateful for it. But I said to myself inside, I am going to be somebody. Like I
mm,
knew that. And I thank God that I knew that because it was important for me to overcome those labels, like you said, that people are putting on you. And also there were always high expectations in my home. Like we were poor and we had each other, but my parents never lowered the bar. They didn't have any money for us to get there or whatever, but they never said you get a pass because we're
mhm,
poor. So I'm just grateful that they saw stuff in me. And I think my one of our godfathers that we grew up with, it's through a New York kind of story. Like our grandmother, when she came to the country, was the housekeeper and nanny for a family in Long Island, a Jewish family, and um, their child and my dad are considered brothers. It's that
mhm,
simple.
mhm.
And he's had a pivotal role in our lives since we were small. And I remember him saying to me, and I think when you're going through those types of things, you're just looking for any hope and validation from someone who loves you and someone who is also smart and successful that it's going to be okay. And I remember Jeff saying to me, it's okay, girl. You're still going to be everything that you've set out to be. You just made it a little harder on yourself. And I just loved him so much for that. I still love him so much, and he's still a big part of our family. They're getting older now, but I just was so grateful for that. And I try to be that person for kids and other people that when you're going through it's whatever it is, it's hard, it's pushing, it's pressing, you need people to say hopeful things. You need
Mhm.
people to encourage you that you're going to make it through this time. And I love doing that for other people. So that's how I would answer that question.
That is awesome. And listeners, I am not going to run down Dr. TM's resume, but let's be very clear.
You don't have
You
time.
are listening to one of Ed Reform's major boss ladies. And so feel free to look her up on LinkedIn and things like that in Brooklyn Lab Charter School's website. We are going to get into our conversation here in just a bit.
Well, Dr. Garland, I got a question for you. Simon Sinek always says, start with why.
Yeah.
Tell us your why. Why are you such a passionate, enthusiastic educator?
Because education matters so much in my life. Without it, I couldn't have uh, made it out, as well as be able to come back and pay it forward. I think your why endears people. It makes you human and they understand, like, I've been through the things and I'm not embarrassed to say I've been through those things. And so if you've been through those things, you can still make it. You can get out of it. You can create another path. That positive multi-generational change really appealed to me personally. I've seen it be real in the lives of my siblings. I shared there are 9 of us and one passed away. And we are all successful, by the terms everyone says. Like, my brother went to live with Jeff in California. He's never come back. So he loves the West Coast. But like we all in our own paths and ways arrived at success. And that was important to me because as a kid, I saw that happen for each of us at different times. So we had different aptitudes, different learning styles. And I'm serious because I laugh all the time. My brother, who is what I consider like he's the brother that, we all can turn to. My brothers are all like that for me. But They are like, one of them was terrible. My dad sent him to Jeff because he was going to kill him. So he went and he reset. He had failed through college just playing around. And then my other brother, they thought he was special, and they used to put him on a bus and ride, for school. And you know how siblings are. We would eat him up. Like, you got on that van.
Yeah, the teasing.
Right,
Yeah.
teasing. He's so successful now, owns so many properties, has worked as a leader in Nestle, just done so many incredible things. And so I bring that back to the why, because I know we don't all have to be the same. We don't all have to understand the same. Like, it happens for kids at different times. And so if we love them, like you said, Jim, if we love them and show them that there's hope and show them that there's worthiness within them, and we're building them up, and the adults who need to do that need it just as much as the kids. Yeah, it is my why. It grounds me. It brings me back every time. I'm here for the kids. Like, whenever I'm facing challenges, I'm here for the kids. Like, and I'm going to go forward and have the courage that it took for somebody to have for me to be where I am.
I love that, because every human being has dignity and they have gifts, and they got to
Yes.
find them, and they got to, build them and grow them and refine them. But boy, once they get those gifts turned on and be
Yes.
themselves and,
Yes.
help others rise, it's awesome. You've got a heart full of gratitude,
Yeah.
and you express it well, but there's actually science that people that are grateful are like 25% happier and more successful. Are you aware of the science, or do you just have a grateful heart?
Well, I read this book. It says, be thankful and say so. So I try to follow it. I try to say thank you. I try to show people that I'm grateful. I see them. I don't take it for granted, especially when you grow up not having a lot. It's just sometimes so overwhelming the way people can love and support you. Every step of the way in my journey, I had people loving and supporting me. My community in Naperville loved and supported me as a single mom. And, there's just ways that humans come together so creatively and dynamically when they are open and grateful, and you allow people to see you and understand where you are, what you need. And that took work, to be able to get there too.
Greatness takes work, but I love that. We actually have a thing in our meetings where we start with what we call attitudes of gratitude, and it's just an opportunity for people to share personally.
Oh, I like that.
They're thankful for. All right, so let's talk about students. So when students come to Brooklyn Lab, do they got to come or do they get to come?
Both. I think there are some situations where parents are like, you going, but we really tried to, in my administration here, I've tried to lift up, like, this is a wonderful location. We have a wonderful building. When people come in, they're always like wowed by the structure. It's different. And I just want them to feel special. That worked for me in Chicago at the charter I founded there with Noble, on the south side of Inglewood. My parents thought we were a private school. They would say, like, this, we don't do that here. And it was just great to have people proud with me and willing to go on the journey with me, with their children, which I view as like their most prized possessions. No matter where we come from and what we walk through, we all want what's best for our children in the majority of cases. And so I try to connect with that person and the people, let them understand, like, I know what it feels like to be in that welfare office, and bringing your whole life in there and being told you're missing the yellow paper with the pink dot on the back. Or people treating me like I was less than human. I've dealt with that as a mom before I became an educator, just people treating me like I didn't know. I'm raising concerns because I'm seeing things and wondering and asking questions, and people being dismissive. And so I think when you are poor, people don't necessarily have accountability for the way that they treat you. And I'm grateful to have been through those things, because I never want to forget where I came from. I never want to forget the shame that I felt. I never want to forget the embarrassment for not having, or looking around and feeling wrong because I didn't look like everybody else. Yeah, so I just want people to know you're welcome. And like you said, anything is possible.
I love that. So we talk about success and excellence has a look and a sound and a feel to it. What does it look like and sound like and feel like for a student walking into Brooklyn Lab?
I think it's really special to be a CEO from Brooklyn who understands like their lives, their neighborhoods, and can be an example for them that I can make it too. And that's why I think it's so important to even be vulnerable with children, because they are sitting there counting themselves out and being able to share and open in ways that shows them your future is bright. You may start here, but you have so much to achieve and explore. And I guess having the experience under my belt and having my kids now, my work kids, I call them my guy kids because that's how we came together. But they're successful. They have college degrees. They have master's degrees. They are travelers. They go all over the world. And some of those experiences we had together in their learning experience, and some, of course, came after. But I am so proud of seeing them. And so knowing what the impact of this work has the potential to do, I do have a confidence and a light about it, because I know that if you want it, if you're willing to go for it, you can have it.
Reminds me of a story I heard Jeffrey Canada tell where his college graduates would come back to school in the summer and see the kids, and they're like, they went to college? Well, we can do that. I can do it, right? It helps to know people that are doing those things and paving the path for you, right? And showing you what's possible.
Yeah. And Dr. TM, Jim and I, and we have some other colleagues, we've been reading this book by Ted Coldry called The Split Screen Strategy. And there are a couple of lessons in that book. And one of them is where he challenges us really around our use of technology inside of our school buildings.
Yes, because you can't really split screens. And that's what I think we are fooling ourselves with in these times. It's like we are doing too much. And sometimes I think we have to forsake things that are convenient, and fun, like social media. I gave that up in the fall. I just felt like my mind wasn't sharp and I was just so distracted. And I just stopped doing that because I'm like, I don't have capacity. We don't have room for that. So now I need to focus. But it's been so rewarding to let it go, to feel more fresh and grounded and moving in my purpose. It was really something I had to look at. I'm discouraged with the kids at times, and we have to take the phones. I'm grateful. Shout out to New York City. They put out a law so that we really have backing with the phones, like they're not for school. And I do think that's so important. We were able to do such great work at Noble because we took the phones before anybody. Like they just couldn't be audible or visible at school, and it forced the children to focus. And I saw that as a mom. I had two daughters that attended Johnson College Prep. And I saw that difference. Like you take that phone and the kids blossom. We just did a trip to Puerto Rico for the kids, community service, a bunch of things. We took the phones on the trip because it's like you guys are not going to interact with one another. You're not going to get the full experience because you're not really present.
Yeah, and the phones is one piece. But this kind of technology, we're thinking about how it enhances learning. So I'm a bio major, right? And so when I think about technology inside of like my bio classes or physics, that's really different, right? And so I'm wondering if you have a story from one of your students, either that's in your engineering pathway or the biology or a STEM pathway. What are the technologies they're using inside those lab-based courses?
Okay, so we have a few, and we're adding more in the next year. I brought Project Lead the Way. I had it as a principal and loved it. And I love the program because I saw students engage that were never there, and being able to, and it's funny because it's technology, but if it's robotics or it's engineering or it's biomed science, they're putting their hands on, they're making. So it's not the same as other technology. The engineering course runs on the computer in large part. They do a lot of hands-on stuff, but they use a 3D printer and they get to create things that are incredible. The biomeds, they have any number of things. This is just great curriculum that can allow you to bring STEM into your school or STEAM and allow you to get your teachers trained and take care of that stuff. You buy the kits, They get trained, they know the lessons, it's all there. So it's been very rewarding to bring that to our community. I tend to work in urban communities where the digital divide is a thing. So I think using technology in those ways, and as you described, I saw the other day a table for anatomy and physiology. And I was
Yeah,
like, I need that for my kids. Like, if it's connected to learning, I'm all about it. And I
absolutely.
want the best. But if it's going to take you out of yourself, then
Mhm.
that technology is not good, or
Yeah.
overexpose kids to things they don't need to see at young ages, you know.
Yeah. What I love, having had educational background in a lab-based science, where I came from in high school, I didn't have those opportunities in high school. It was very much like textbook biology, like everything was a
Yes.
textbook. And I got to
Yes.
college, it was like nothing was a textbook. Everything
Nothing.
was my
Everything's
lab book.
hands-on
And
in lab. Hmm.
exactly. And so you all are bringing those styles of learning to
Yes.
the curriculum in your buildings. And so for our
Hmm.
fans who don't know what Project Lead the Way is, can you share what that means to be in partnership with them and what those kits look
Sure.
like?
And they have a lot of grants. So I want to say that for anyone who wants to try it, you can apply. They have lots of grants available themselves. Like, so not going to someone else, but they can help you with it. So Project Lead the Way, you can choose courses. Like, there's a biomedical science pathway, there's an introduction to engineering pathway, and then there are these units for the middle schoolers. So our first unit for middle school was app creators. So we had to purchase iPads. They give you like lists of the technology that the school has to purchase. So they got iPads, and they created apps. They learned how to do that, and they're finishing that unit. So you can stretch the units out. You can do a rotating unit situation. So what we've been doing is just doing a full school course for the
Mhm.
middle schoolers. And so they all had app creators. And now I think they're going into medical detectives next year in robotics.
Wow.
Then when you go to high school, we have them get a little bit of everything. So we do the introduction to biomedical pathways, and we do the introduction to engineering so that they can experience both, where they are like in biomedical science, for example. Forensics has become a big thing, technology, and it's important for kids to understand that. So they have a unit where, when I say kit, like they send, there's a body on the floor, there's police tape, the lamp is knocked over, there's like all this stuff that the kids have to take in and assess and be able to leverage their tools to come to conclusions about what has happened. That's one example from a unit there.
Mhm.
Whereas engineering is more so about like them creating things, It's been wonderful too. We have partnerships with Turner Construction, and they're going to be working with us on labs. And we're also working on closing this construction deal because we're going to add more space for the reasons that you talked about. We want to go project-based learning in middle school. That requires a studio. So we need more space in the building. We want
Mhm.
true science labs. That takes money and space. So we're
Yeah.
really excited because in negotiating our new lease, our landlord has come to the table as a partner and is willing to cover a lot in the build out, provided we, go into the business of a longer lease. But I won't bore you with that stuff. But it is a financial investment. And I think that that is always a thing for schools that may not have all of the resources.
Mhm.
So just figuring out, start somewhere.
That's right.
And, even if you start small, start a club after school. Because there are other schools, like I can say my nieces are in Naperville. My sister is in Naperville. She's an educator. They start in elementary school and they
Mhm.
are doing incredible things, like
Mhm.
and engaging things. That's the thing about it too, that it's so engaging. The kids enjoy it.
That's right.
It's real world, it's problem based. They're working through different things. I know one of the units in biomed was about COVID and them understanding those kinds of diseases and what the
Mhm.
implications are for a pandemic, and really working with biomed to understand like what's the scientist's response to what's happening, what we see on the news and hear about.
That's
I think
right.
what's so prescient about that for the podcast nation is there's running schools and then there's learning. And we kind of conflate them, but they're different, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Running schools like leases and operational details and fire drills and all of that stuff that goes with running schools. But learning, wow, like that requires its own focus.
Yeah.
And so to be able to do that, you think about as an adult, when do you learn the most? When you have a need or a reason or a why.
Yes.
So when you give kids exposure and a reason and a need and a why, they learn more because they want to learn versus
Mhm.
we got to get through the book. That's
Yeah.
magical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. And I think that also there's also this thing that I see and experience. I try to stay hip and popular. That's what I tell my kids all the time.
I fully believe it. You've got it.
Mom is hip and popular. And they're always like, oh my God. But I think that we have to push ourselves as the instructors who may not have learned in those ways to learn and stay current and get involved and leverage the kids. Because whenever I can't do something, they'll tell me how to do it.
Yeah.
But I just think like they get scared sometimes.
They want to learn from somebody they trust and respect and
Mhm.
loves them and cares about them, right? They can smell it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But Dr.
It's
Tien,
really true.
you hit on something I was hoping you'd expand on. Because this happens to all of us, I think. And so we may have to be vulnerable in this moment. But you said it exactly. Sometimes as the adults, we did not learn in the ways that our students or even our own children are now able to. For example, I remember when there were car phones before there were like cell phones, right? So like we just came up in a different time and the technologies available were so different. So when you think about the adults who work with Brooklyn Lab Charter School, what are the processes to bring those teachers along to say, hey, we're a lab-based curriculum. We teach students using simulations and labs. How do the adults come to learn how to be strong facilitators of that process?
There's two things. So programs like Project Lead the Way include training. So they prepare your teachers, train them, and do it. And the other thing I would say is accountability, because you have to push, like you're not doing the stuff. Like, so I visit classrooms more around those times for curriculum fidelity to understand, like, are you doing what is supposed to be taught in this class? Is it rigorous? And so in visiting them, I do see them get scared sometimes, like, or try to ease up. It's like, guys, how come the microscopes are not one-to-one? We purchased enough for everybody to be one-to-one. You just see them like do little things that it's like, is that really a barrier? Or are you just afraid? Because you just got to go. You got to jump and take notes and learn as you go. And that's worked really well for us, like just holding people accountable. The first year we bought app creators, the iPad stayed on the 12th floor in storage for that whole year. And so we had to make sure we built in this accountability piece, because people would get trained, get paid for being trained, and then like come up with excuses that really I had to see through and say, like, you're afraid of making the leap. And that's okay, but it's my job to push you for the sake of the kids.
And it is okay as adults to be afraid. And I think what I'm hearing you say, and this is my own opinion as well, that doesn't mean that we stay in the fear. We can acknowledge it, right? Like that is something I am experiencing. I can acknowledge it. But if I am putting students first, it is a disservice if I do not figure out how to make sure they have the most prime learning experience possible, especially if all of the tools are present.
Exactly. Joyce Meyer used to say that back when I was coming up, do it afraid. And that was an important part of, I think, of me developing and growing as an adult as well. Just like fear is natural. We all feel fear. Like what separates the people who do it from those who don't is like the willingness to embrace it and lean into it.
I love that because we're all afraid, right? Different things, different times, but you got to do it anyway.
Exactly.
And that's
whatever's going to happen is going to happen. What is, what will be, will be. You have to stay focused on your North Star.
Yep.
And for me, the kids do that for me. So
we call it be brave or be courageous, or, in our world, we might think about it as bold by choice, but you got to stand up and step up.
And I draw a lot of courage from history. I feel that there was just a tremendous amount of courage shown in terms of like, we're going to break out and make our own country. We're going to break off from the rules of the British and all that stuff. And then for African people of the diaspora, just really working to climb to being recognized as people and being embraced as far as people who can make meaningful contributions. And I know that there had to be a lot of courage for the people who came before me. There had to be, I mean, just they sacrificed so much, but they still had courage, and they were still brave, and they still sang about it, and they still pushed. And whether it was getting their hair ripped out by the hoses, that from the fire people, like, that were so strong, like it took people's hair out by the root, or getting bit up by dogs, being hung, like all that stuff. I think that is stuff that should empower us, because as a people, we overcame it, and we're in a different place now. Is it hard? Yeah. Is it scary? Yeah. Is it different at times than other people's experiences? Yeah. But that doesn't mean it's not worth doing.
Absolutely.
As I tell my kids and grandkids, on a totally different level than where you were at, but they'll say it's hard, and I'm just like, and what's awesome is you can do hard things.
Yes. Say that on a banner, like go on a campaign around the country, like, yeah, it's hard. So, like, it doesn't mean that you can't do it because it's hard. It's going to mean that it's going to be worth it when you overcome and accomplish what you want to accomplish.
That's absolutely right. And we find ourselves as a country, we are, and maybe even as the world, when it comes to technologies, we're in a boom, right? And some of these new technologies are here to stay. And so, like, yeah, there's a lot of resistance to things like AI and what is that going to do to the world and all these other things. And the reality is, like, shifts are happening. And so I think my encouragement to all educators and all adults out there is, like, embrace something new as it relates to technologies in the way, in the pattern that you can. And understand, like, the kids already doing it, right? The kids have fully embraced it. And so as adults, we've got to do it in fear. We've got to have the courage to learn new things and continue to grow our brains. I think a lot of us say, oh, yes, I'm a continuous learner. Well, that applies to using new technologies in this world.
Yes. Yes. The kids, it's funny because one of them came to see me. We talked about Edgenuity. So we've been able to use that program for kids whose transcripts went awry in the pandemic. And we built out this Operation Finish Line and how we were going to give kids hope, because they are coming and they're missing courses. So they can focus on the year they're in, but also make up courses. And one young man came to my office and he said, Dr. TM, I keep a very open relationship with my kids. I'm always accessible to them. And he came in, Dr. TM, they took my Google Gemini off of my Edgenuity. We can't use it anymore, and I need you to get it back. So I said, okay, I'll look into it. So I go to tech and I'm like, the kids are asking for Google Gemini. They were like, no, Dr. Tim, like, that's doing it. He's like, it's doing it for him. He was getting the AI to do the course for him. And so I guess we figured that out and made it inaccessible while they're doing their coursework. But I just cracked up because he came to the CEO like, y'all better get it back in there. And then I'm like, okay, well, let me figure out what's going on, because I want them to see in their experiences with me that they are important.
Yeah.
That what they bring to me is just as important as an adult. And so when we go, I do follow up their needs and concerns, their feedback. But I just chuckled at that one, like, oh, nice try. So you almost had me.
Yeah.
But the tech people were like, he can't have that.
But I think that's a real good one to bring up, because as educators, we're going to be challenged by, like, the AIs are here. So how are we pushing cognitive thinking and grappling, understanding that the AI exists? And that is a push on the adult side of this puzzle, not so much the student side. So I'm just going to keep bringing that up. We may keep bringing guests on to tackle that challenge, but it is one that's facing.
You sound like you just came back from San Diego at the ASPSD Tech and Education meet.
I did. I have so many ideas.
One of my colleagues is out in that Cali area, Oliver Seacat.
Oh, okay. Well, I will say shout out to the folks who run ASU GSV, powerful tech and education conference, grappling some really tough topics. I came away inspired, and it connected and challenged myself, my own thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of helpful things out there, but I think it's just navigating like which ones are worth your time. You only get so many hours in a day. You spend this many at school. Like, just be thoughtful about how much of it you're trying to do, because it does have like detriment on, as a parent, I can say they don't want to go to bed at night. They want to play video games with people in other countries. That are up at odd hours and all the things. It's great that they get to do it. I look at their video games and I think, boy, like I thought it was hard to pass Mario.
Right, I could never get to the princess.
They
So
have real people. They have real people um, in there, and it's just like, wow, this is crazy. It's so incredible, but we have to organize it and put it in perspective. Like, it can't take over your whole life.
That's right. Well,
You know,
Jim, any final thoughts as we head to
I do,
close?
because so many of the kids love sports.
Mm-hmm.
What does a coach always tell you? Stay focused. Don't get
Yeah.
distracted.
Yeah.
And you bring these technologies in, and how does a teacher compete on keeping them focused and not being distracted when you're up against
Yeah.
and
Relationships.
it's one of the benefits of, we just don't have phones in school, right? It creates
Yeah.
a clear line. I've seen the work and the research from Angela Duckworth and others on that. But
I like her TED Talk.
what's really awesome is when you have a reason of meaningful, relevant, rigorous material and a joy of learning and peers and teachers and a culture of love and learning. Like, that's purposeful. And
Yes.
that's what we want all students to have, where they get to go to school, not got to. And I get the difference, but it's a mindset of, we're here to learn and grow. And this is something special that we own together. And then your parents and your community protect it and foster it. And you're not just a number, right? You can't escape. Whether you call that culture, teamwork, love, charity, like, I don't know. But when you see it in action, man, it works.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It really does. And we've been able to make so many gains and achieve so many wins on behalf of Brooklyn Lab, and just right sizing, life after the pandemic, school after the pandemic. And I feel like I walked into that and needing to like sort of build it back up again. And it's been very rewarding. And I think one of the things I wanted to do was challenge myself to leave Chicago, where I had been for 20 years, maybe 21. And then, as far as being professional is concerned, and go somewhere else and see, am I able to replicate the success that I've had there in another state? And I'm proud of the work that we've been able to achieve at Brooklyn Lab for that reason. And it really shows that like the right things for kids work.
So is it easier to run a top performing charter school in Chicago or in Brooklyn?
I would say Chicago. I miss my Chicago people. I think that Chicago is more warm. And I've always been a kid that grew up in Brooklyn, and so it always has like a love and a special place in my heart. But now that I've been here, I don't know, like I really miss Chicago. I think that Chicago needs to see Chicago for what it is. And I think I needed to get away from it to understand what I had there and the community that I've been able to build in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area. So I think it's different. It's more, and this is consistent with like New Yorkers. We're like this, like it's more combative at times. I think parents can be more edgy about schools because they have so many different choices. So yeah, I think it's different. I want to say New York gives better expenditure per pupil, and that has been huge. And I'm grateful to New York for that. I think that New York understands the value of education, and they did when I was a kid. And I see that persisting in what resources that they are making available. Whereas it's like you can't expect greatness when you're paying an expenditure per pupil that's $20,000 less than other states. You just can't buy the same things. Like I can't say the same way, I want to bring this program in, when you don't have the money to do it, and do it well.
Well, Dr. TM, if folks have listened today and want to connect, maybe they have a student that they want to bring to the school, or they may want to partner in another way, how do folks connect with you all?
We're all over the place. We're on social media. We have people operating those accounts, LinkedIn, the website, email. Many people just kind of call, email you these days, like they find your email. And if
And
it's
shout out to you for
meaningful,
answering my cold call email. So you can
it
attest
just
to
depends on
that.
what it is. I was going to say if it's meaningful, I will respond. Most of the time, I just hit spam,
Yeah.
because it's sales, like people just
Yeah.
finding you and wanting you to buy their thing, you know.
Mhm,
But if
mhm.
it's about enriching the work, I'm always available for that.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time and authenticity today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And for listeners out there, we want to thank you all for staying with us on the Bold by Choice podcast. As you see this season, we are exploring what's possible when schools are designed with an incredible amount of intention. And today's conversation reminded us that when used thoughtfully, technology can expand the opportunity for students to achieve what matters most, and that is their end goal and to build a life they want to build for themselves. Until next time, stay bold by choice.